Lisa took a deep breath as she parked her car in front of the school. The sun was shining brightly, and the excitement in the air was palpable. Today was the annual school talent show, and her daughter Emma was set to perform a dance routine with her classmates. As a dedicated elementary school teacher, Lisa had always encouraged her students to express themselves, and now she was thrilled to see her own daughter shine on stage. Walking through the school gates, Lisa felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. She remembered her own childhood performances, the thrill of being in the spotlight and the pride of her parents cheering her on. Today, she was here to support Emma, to be the proud mom she had always wanted to be. As she made her way to the auditorium, Lisa's heart swelled with anticipation. She spotted Emma in her colorful costume, practicing her moves with her friends. Just as she was about to wave at her daughter, a familiar voice cut through the cheerful chatter of parents and children. "Look who it is, the single mom still trying to make it work," Mark's voice rang out, dripping with sarcasm. Lisa's heart sank. There he was, her ex-husband, Mark, standing with his new girlfriend, Rachel. Mark, with his confident smirk and casual demeanor, looked like he hadn't a care in the world. Rachel, dressed in designer clothes, stood beside him, her arms crossed, a look of amusement on her face. "Nice to see you, Lisa, still playing the role of the struggling mother," Mark continued, his tone mocking. Lisa felt a rush of anger, but took a deep breath, reminding herself that today was about Emma, not about her past with Mark. She straightened her back and forced a smile, determined not to let them ruin this moment. "I'm here for Emma, Mark. That's all that matters," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Rachel let out a laugh, tilting her head as if genuinely amused. "Oh, of course. It must be nice to have something to focus on since you don't really have much else going on, do you?" The humiliation burned through Lisa, but she refused to let it show. She could feel the eyes of other parents on her, some sympathetic, others entertained. This was not how she envisioned the day going, but she was not about to let them see her break. "Let's keep this civil, shall we?" a teacher interjected, stepping in to diffuse the situation. But Mark barely acknowledged her, his focus still locked on Lisa. "Oh, we're being civil," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Just checking in on you, Lisa. After all, it's not easy being alone, is it?" Lisa clenched her fists at her sides, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. This wasn't just an attack on her. It was a calculated performance meant to paint her as weak and pitiful. But she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. "I'm doing just fine, thank you," she said, lifting her chin slightly. "Emma is happy, and that's what matters." Mark's smirk faltered for a moment, but Rachel wasn't done. "Maybe if you weren't so busy struggling, you could actually give her the life she deserves." Lisa felt a surge of protectiveness for Emma. "You don't get to talk about what's best for my daughter," she said, her voice steady but firm. "She is loved, and I don't need to tear others down to feel important." Just as the tension reached its peak, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Lisa turned to look, her heart racing, not in fear, but in anticipation. The driver stepped out, dressed sharply, exuding confidence. Then the car door opened and out stepped Alex, a friend from her past, someone who always knew how to make her feel strong. As their eyes met, Lisa felt a rush of warmth and support. This was not just about defending herself anymore. It was about showing Mark and Rachel that she was not the same woman they had left behind. "Who is that?" Rachel asked, her voice suddenly lacking its earlier bravado. Lisa smiled, tilting her head slightly. "Oh, that's the person waiting for me in the car." The air around them shifted. Mark's face drained of color, and Rachel's eyes widened in surprise. For the first time, they were the ones caught off guard. "Shall we?" Alex said, stepping closer to Lisa with an easy smile. Lisa felt a surge of confidence as she turned to face Mark and Rachel. She was ready to reclaim her narrative, and this time she wouldn't back down. The crowd around them fell silent, all eyes now on Lisa, Mark, and Rachel. Lisa could feel the weight of their stares, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt empowered. This was her moment to stand tall, to show everyone, including herself, that she was not the woman Mark had once belittled. Mark's expression shifted from surprise to irritation as he tried to regain control of the situation. "So, you've moved on to someone else, huh? How quaint," he sneered, crossing his arms. "I guess you needed a new crutch since you couldn't handle being a single mom on your own." Lisa's heart raced, but she refused to let his words penetrate her resolve. "I don't need a crutch, Mark. I've been doing just fine on my own," she replied, her voice steady. "And I'm here for Emma, not to entertain you." Rachel chimed in, her tone dripping with condescension. "Oh, come on, Lisa. It must be exhausting juggling everything alone. I mean, how do you even manage?" The humiliation threatened to bubble over, but Lisa took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. She glanced at Emma, who was backstage, preparing for her performance. That was all the motivation she needed. "You know what's exhausting?" Lisa said, her voice rising slightly. "It's dealing with people who think they can belittle others to feel superior. I'm here to support my daughter, and that's what matters." Mark's smirk faltered again, and for a brief moment, Lisa saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. But Rachel wasn't finished. "Maybe if you weren't so busy playing the victim, you could actually give Emma the life she deserves," she shot back, her voice sharp. Lisa felt a surge of anger, but she channeled it into strength. "You don't know anything about my life or what Emma deserves," she said, stepping closer to Rachel. "She is happy, she is loved, and I will not let you two turn this into a spectacle." Just then, the teacher who had intervened earlier stepped back in, sensing the rising tension. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, this is a school event. Perhaps we should keep things civil," she suggested, her tone firm. Mark barely acknowledged her, his focus still on Lisa. "Oh, we're just checking in on you, Lisa. After all, it's not easy being alone, is it?" he repeated, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. Lisa felt her breath hitch, but before she could respond, Alex stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You know, it's interesting how you think you can just waltz in here and belittle someone who's clearly moved on," he said, his tone calm but firm. "Lisa is doing an incredible job raising Emma, and it's about time you recognized that." The crowd began to murmur, some nodding in agreement with Alex. Lisa felt a rush of gratitude for his support. This was not just about her anymore. It was about showing Emma that strength comes from standing up for oneself. Mark's confidence began to waver as he glanced around at the growing crowd. "This isn't over, Lisa," he said, his voice low and strained. Lisa met his gaze, her heart pounding with determination. "No, it's not. But this time, I'm the one in control," she replied, her voice steady. "And I won't let you or Rachel make me feel small again." As the tension hung in the air, Lisa felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer the woman who had been discarded. She was a mother fighting for her daughter, and she would not back down. As the tension in the air thickened, Lisa felt a surge of confidence with Alex by her side. He had always been a supportive friend, someone who understood her struggles and celebrated her victories. His presence was a reminder that she was not alone in this fight. "Let's get back to the show, shall we?" Alex suggested, his voice smooth and reassuring. He turned to Lisa, offering her a warm smile. "Emma is about to perform, and she deserves our full attention." Lisa nodded, grateful for his support. "You're right. Emma is what matters most," she said, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She turned to face the stage, where the lights were dimming and the audience was buzzing with excitement. As they made their way to their seats, Lisa could feel Mark's eyes boring into her, but she refused to let his presence overshadow her joy. She focused on Emma, who was now standing in the spotlight, her face beaming with excitement. The music started, and Lisa's heart swelled with pride as she watched her daughter dance. The performance was beautiful, filled with energy and joy. Lisa clapped enthusiastically, cheering for Emma as she twirled and leaped across the stage. In that moment, all the negativity from earlier faded away. Lisa felt a sense of peace wash over her, knowing that she was doing everything she could to provide a loving and supportive environment for her daughter. As the performance concluded, the audience erupted into applause. Lisa stood up, clapping and cheering, her heart full. Emma took a bow, her face glowing with happiness. Lisa's eyes sparkled with tears of joy as she caught Emma's gaze, and they shared a proud smile. After the show, as parents began to mingle, Lisa felt a sense of camaraderie with those around her. She was no longer the target of ridicule. She was a proud mother celebrating her daughter's achievements. But just as she began to relax, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she found Mark standing there, his expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. "You think this is over, don't you?" he said, his voice low and tense. Lisa took a step back, her heart racing. "What do you want, Mark?" she asked, trying to keep her composure. "I want to talk about Emma," he said, his tone shifting slightly. "I think it's time we discuss custody." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "Custody? You barely see her, Mark. What makes you think you can just waltz in and demand custody now?" she replied, her voice steady but laced with anger. Mark glanced around, noticing the growing crowd. "I just think she'd be better off with us. Rachel and I can provide her with a stable home," he insisted, his voice rising slightly. Lisa shook her head, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. "Stable? You mean the kind of stability that comes from tearing her away from her mother? You don't get to decide what's best for Emma when you've been absent for so long," she shot back, her voice firm. Just then, Alex stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You need to understand something, Mark. Lisa is a fantastic mother, and Emma is thriving because of her. You can't just come in here and try to take her away," he said, his tone unwavering. Mark's expression darkened, and Lisa could see the frustration boiling beneath the surface. "You don't know anything about my life," he snapped, his voice tense. "No, but I know enough to see that you're trying to manipulate the situation to your advantage," Alex replied, his gaze steady. "This isn't about you, it's about Emma." The crowd around them began to murmur, and Lisa felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer the victim. She was a mother fighting for her daughter's happiness. "Mark, if you think you can just come in here and take Emma away from me, you're mistaken," Lisa said, her voice steady. "I will fight you with everything I have." Mark's face twisted in anger, but Lisa stood her ground, feeling the support of Alex and the other parents around her. This was her moment to reclaim her narrative, to show everyone, including herself, that she was strong enough to protect her daughter. The atmosphere around them crackled with tension as Lisa stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the eyes of the other parents on her, some filled with sympathy, others with curiosity, but she didn't care. She was ready to fight for Emma. Mark's frustration was palpable. "You think you can just keep her from me because you're playing the strong single mom card? That's not how this works, Lisa," he said, his voice rising. Lisa took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "This isn't about playing cards, Mark. This is about Emma's well-being. You've been absent for so long, and now you want to swoop in and act like you care?" she shot back, her voice steady but firm. Alex stepped closer, his presence a reassuring shield. "You need to understand that Lisa has been there for Emma every single day. She's the one who has supported her, loved her, and raised her. You can't just come in and demand custody without any real involvement in her life," he said, his tone unwavering. Mark's expression shifted from anger to desperation. I can provide her with a better life. Rachel and I have a stable home, and we can give her everything she needs, he insisted, his voice strained. Lisa shook her head, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. You think material things equate to a better life? Emma needs love, support, and stability, and she has that with me. You don't get to decide what's best for her when you've been absent for so long, she replied, her voice rising slightly. The crowd around them began to murmur, and Lisa could see some parents nodding in agreement. She felt a surge of confidence knowing that she wasn't alone in this fight. Mark, if you truly cared about Emma, you would have been there for her all these years. You can't just waltz in and expect everything to change overnight, Lisa continued, her voice steady. I will not let you take her away from me. Mark's face twisted in anger, but Lisa could see the uncertainty creeping in. He glanced at Rachel, who stood beside him, her expression a mix of concern and frustration. Maybe you should think about what you're doing, Mark, Rachel said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just about you. It's about Emma. Lisa seized the moment, feeling the tide turning in her favor. Exactly. This is about Emma, and she deserves to be with the person who has always been there for her. I won't let you manipulate this situation to your advantage, she said, her voice firm. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, the teacher stepped in again, sensing the rising tension. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, perhaps we should take this conversation elsewhere. This is a school event, and we need to keep things civil, she suggested, her tone authoritative. Lisa nodded, grateful for the teacher's intervention. Thank you. I think it's best if we discuss this privately, she said, her voice steady. As they moved away from the crowd, Lisa felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. She was angry, frustrated, but also empowered. She had stood up for herself and for Emma, and she wasn't going to back down now. Once they were out of earshot, Mark turned to Lisa, his expression shifting from anger to something more vulnerable. I just didn't expect you to move on so quickly, he admitted, his voice low. Lisa crossed her arms, feeling a mix of sympathy and frustration. You didn't think I would just sit around and wait for you to decide to be a father, did you? She replied, her tone firm. I've been raising Emma on my own, and I've done a damn good job of it. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. I just thought you'd always be there, waiting for me to come back, he said, his voice strained. Lisa shook her head, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. You took that choice away from me when you left. I had to learn to be strong for Emma, and I won't let you take her away from me now, she said, her voice steady. As they stood there, the weight of their past hung heavy in the air. Lisa knew this was just the beginning of a long battle, but she was ready to fight for her daughter. She had come too far to let Mark dictate her life again. As the tension between Lisa and Mark hung in the air, Lisa felt a surge of determination. She knew she had to stand her ground, not just for herself, but for Emma. The stakes were too high, and she wouldn't let Mark's manipulations dictate their future. Mark, let's be honest here, Lisa began, her voice steady. You've been absent for most of Emma's life. You can't just come back and expect everything to change because you think you can provide a better life. What does that even mean? Mark shifted uncomfortably, his bravado faltering. I just want what's best for her, he insisted, but Lisa could see the cracks in his facade. Do you really? Lisa challenged, her eyes narrowing. Because if you did, you would have been there for her. You would have made an effort to be a part of her life instead of just showing up when it's convenient for you. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but Lisa pressed on. You don't get to play the concerned father now. You've made your choices, and those choices have consequences. The silence between them was thick, and Lisa could see the realization dawning on Mark. He had taken her for granted, assuming she would always be there, waiting for him to come back, but she had moved on, and she was not going to let him take that away from her. "Look, I know I haven't been the best father," Mark admitted, his voice low. "But I want to change that. I want to be involved in Emma's life." Lisa felt a flicker of hope but quickly extinguished it. "Wanting to be involved isn't enough, Mark. You need to show it. You need to prove that you can be a stable presence in her life, not just a name on a birth certificate." Mark's expression shifted, and for the first time Lisa saw a hint of vulnerability. "I didn't think you'd move on so quickly. I thought I could just come back and everything would be the same," he said, his voice strained. "Things will never be the same," Lisa replied firmly. "I've built a life for Emma and me, and I won't let you disrupt that. You need to understand that this isn't just about you anymore." Just then, Alex stepped forward, sensing the tension. "Mark, if you truly care about Emma, you need to start acting like it. It's not enough to just say you want to be involved. You have to show it through your actions," he said, his tone calm but firm. Mark glanced at Alex, his expression a mix of frustration and realization. "I get it, I really do. But I need time to figure this out," he said, his voice softer now. Lisa crossed her arms, feeling a mix of anger and sympathy. "Time is something you've already wasted, Mark. Emma deserves consistency and love, not empty promises," she replied, her voice steady. As they stood there, the weight of their past hung heavy in the air. Lisa knew this was just the beginning of a long battle, but she was ready to fight for her daughter. She had come too far to let Mark dictate her life again. "Let's not make this a public spectacle," Lisa suggested, her voice firm. "We can discuss this further, but I won't let you use Emma as a pawn in your game." Mark nodded, his expression shifting from anger to something more vulnerable. "I just didn't expect you to move on so quickly," he admitted, his voice low. Lisa shook her head, feeling a mix of sympathy and frustration. "You didn't think I would just sit around and wait for you to decide to be a father, did you?" she replied, her tone firm. "I've been raising Emma on my own, and I've done a damn good job of it." As they continued to talk, Lisa felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer the victim. She was a mother fighting for her daughter's happiness, and she would do whatever it took to protect Emma from the chaos of their past. As the conversation continued, Lisa felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had fought hard to create a stable life for Emma, and she wasn't about to let Mark's sudden interest disrupt that. The stakes were high, and she needed to be clear about her boundaries. "Mark, if you truly want to be a part of Emma's life, you need to start by showing up consistently," Lisa said, her voice steady. "It's not enough to just say you want to be involved. You need to prove it through your actions." Mark nodded, his expression serious. "I understand that. I know I've made mistakes. But I want to change. I want to be there for her," he insisted, his voice earnest. Lisa studied him, searching for any sign of sincerity. "Words are easy, Mark. What matters is what you do from here on out. Emma needs stability, and that means you need to be present in her life, not just when it's convenient for you," she replied, her tone firm. Just then, Rachel stepped forward, her expression conflicted. "Mark, maybe we should take a step back and think about this. It's not just about us, it's about Emma's well-being," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Lisa felt a flicker of gratitude for Rachel's support. "Exactly. This is about Emma, and she deserves to be with the person who has always been there for her. I won't let you manipulate this situation to your advantage," she said, her voice unwavering. Mark's expression shifted, and for the first time Lisa saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "I just want what's best for her," he said, his voice strained. "Then you need to show that you can be a responsible parent," Lisa replied, her heart racing. "You need to be involved in her life, not just show up when it's convenient for you. If you want to have a relationship with her, you need to earn that trust back. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm willing to try. I just need time to figure this out, he said, his voice low. Lisa felt a mix of frustration and sympathy. Time is something you've already wasted, Mark. Emma deserves consistency and love, not empty promises, she replied, her voice steady. As they stood there, the weight of their past hung heavy in the air. Lisa knew this was just the beginning of a long battle, but she was ready to fight for her daughter. She had come too far to let Mark dictate her life again. Let's not make this a public spectacle, Lisa suggested, her voice firm. We can discuss this further, but I won't let you use Emma as a pawn in your game. Mark nodded, his expression shifting from anger to something more vulnerable. I just didn't expect you to move on so quickly, he admitted, his voice low. Lisa shook her head, feeling a mix of sympathy and frustration. You didn't think I would just sit around and wait for you to decide to be a father, did you? She replied, her tone firm. I've been raising Emma on my own, and I've done a damn good job of it. As they continued to talk, Lisa felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer the victim. She was a mother fighting for her daughter's happiness, and she would do whatever it took to protect Emma from the chaos of their past. Let's set some ground rules, Lisa suggested, her voice steady. If you want to be involved in Emma's life, we need to establish a schedule. You can start by spending time with her on weekends, and we can see how it goes from there. Mark looked thoughtful, and Lisa could see the wheels turning in his mind. That sounds fair. I want to be there for her, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you both, he said, his voice earnest. Lisa nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. Good, but remember, this is about Emma. She needs to feel secure, and I won't tolerate any disruptions in her life, she said firmly. As they wrapped up their conversation, Lisa felt a sense of hope. This was a new beginning, not just for Mark, but for her and Emma as well. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she had the strength to protect her daughter and create a loving environment for her. In the days that followed, Lisa felt a mix of apprehension and hope. Mark had agreed to the ground rules, and she was cautiously optimistic about the possibility of him being a part of Emma's life. However, she knew that action spoke louder than words, and she would be watching closely to see if he followed through. Emma was excited about the prospect of spending time with her father, but Lisa couldn't shake the feeling of protectiveness that enveloped her. She had worked hard to create a stable and loving environment for Emma, and she wasn't about to let anyone disrupt that. Not even Mark. One Saturday morning, Lisa prepared for Mark's first visit. She had planned a fun day filled with activities that Emma loved, hoping it would create positive memories. As she set up the living room with art supplies and snacks, she felt a flutter of nerves. Mom, is Dad really coming today? Emma asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Yes, sweetheart, he'll be here soon, Lisa replied, forcing a smile. Just remember, it's okay to feel a little nervous. It's been a while since you've seen him. Emma nodded, her excitement tempered by a hint of uncertainty. I just hope he likes what we're doing, she said, glancing at the colorful art supplies. I'm sure he will, Lisa reassured her, kneeling down to Emma's level. Just be yourself and have fun. That's what matters most. As the clock ticked closer to the scheduled time, Lisa felt her heart race. She heard the doorbell ring, and Emma rushed to answer it, her face lighting up as she saw Mark standing there, a nervous smile on his face. Hey kiddo, Mark said, kneeling down to Emma's height. I'm so excited to see you. Hi, Dad, Emma exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. Lisa watched the embrace, her heart swelling with mixed emotions. She wanted this to work for Emma's sake, but she couldn't ignore the past. Come on in, Lisa said, forcing a smile as she stepped aside. We have some fun activities planned for today. As they settled into the living room, Lisa observed the dynamic between Mark and Emma. They started with painting, and Lisa felt a sense of relief as she watched them laugh and bond over their creations. Mark seemed genuinely interested in Emma's ideas, asking questions and encouraging her creativity. "Wow, Emma, that's a beautiful painting. You have such talent," Mark praised, his eyes shining with pride. "Thanks, Dad. I love painting," Emma beamed, her confidence growing with each compliment. Lisa felt a flicker of hope as she watched them interact. Maybe this could work. Maybe Mark could be the father Emma needed, but she remained cautious, reminding herself that this was just the beginning. As the day progressed, they moved on to other activities, playing games, making snacks, and even watching a movie together. Lisa felt a sense of warmth in the room, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to relax a little. However, as the afternoon wore on, Lisa noticed a shift in Mark's demeanor. He seemed to be struggling with the reality of being a father after so long. There were moments when he hesitated, unsure of how to engage with Emma, and Lisa felt a pang of concern. "Hey, Mark, do you want to help Emma with her next painting?" Lisa suggested, trying to encourage him to take a more active role. Sure. What do you need me to do?" Mark replied, his voice slightly hesitant. "Just ask her about her ideas and help her mix the colors," Lisa encouraged, watching as Mark approached Emma, who was eagerly setting up her next canvas. As the evening approached, Lisa felt a sense of accomplishment. The day had gone better than she had anticipated, and Emma was clearly happy, but as Mark prepared to leave, Lisa felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. "Thanks for today, Lisa. I really enjoyed spending time with Emma," Mark said, his voice sincere. "I'm glad to hear that," Lisa replied, her tone cautious. "But remember, this is just the beginning. You need to keep showing up and being consistent." "I will, I promise," Mark said, his eyes earnest. "I want to be a part of her life." As Mark left, Lisa felt a mix of hope and apprehension. She knew that this was just one day, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but for Emma's sake, she was willing to give Mark a chance. That night, as Lisa tucked Emma into bed, she felt a sense of peace. "Did you have fun today?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. "Yeah, it was awesome. Dad is really cool," Emma replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I'm glad you had a good time, sweetheart," Lisa said, kissing her forehead. "Just remember, it's okay to have mixed feelings. We'll take this one step at a time." As she closed the door to Emma's room, Lisa took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. She was determined to protect her daughter and ensure that their lives remained stable and loving, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the weeks turned into months, Lisa watched as Mark made genuine efforts to be a part of Emma's life. He kept his promises, showing up for their scheduled visits, and gradually becoming more involved. Lisa felt a cautious optimism growing within her, but she remained vigilant, knowing that trust was built over time. One Saturday afternoon, Mark arrived with a surprise for Emma, a small puppy he had adopted from a local shelter. "I thought it would be fun for us to have a pet together," he announced, his eyes shining with excitement. Emma's face lit up with joy as she rushed to the puppy, who wagged its tail enthusiastically. "Oh my gosh, Dad, can we keep him?" she squealed, her laughter filling the room. Lisa felt a mix of emotions. While she appreciated Mark's effort to bond with Emma, she also worried about the responsibility of a pet. "Mark, are you sure this is a good idea? A puppy requires a lot of care," she said, her voice cautious. "I know, and I'm ready for it. I want to show Emma that I can be responsible," Mark replied earnestly. "We can take care of him together." After a moment of consideration, Lisa nodded. "Okay, but we need to set some ground rules. Taking care of a puppy is a team effort, and it's important that we all contribute," she said firmly. "Absolutely. I'll help with everything," Mark promised, his enthusiasm infectious. As they settled into their new routine with the puppy, Lisa noticed a positive change in Mark. He was more engaged, not just with Emma but also in their conversations. They discussed parenting strategies, shared responsibilities, and even began to communicate more openly about their past. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Mark turned to Lisa, his expression serious. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sorry for how I treated you in the past. I want to be a better father and a better person," he said, his voice sincere. Lisa felt a wave of emotion wash over her. "I appreciate that, Mark. It means a lot to hear you say that, but it's going to take time for me to fully trust you again," she replied, her tone honest. "I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes," Mark said, determination in his eyes. As the months passed, Lisa and Mark continued to navigate their co-parenting journey. They attended school events together, celebrated birthdays, and even took family trips with Emma. Slowly but surely, they began to rebuild their relationship, not as a couple but as co-parents who were committed to Emma's happiness. One day, as they sat together watching Emma play with the puppy in the backyard, Lisa felt a sense of peace. "I never thought we'd get to this point," she admitted, glancing at Mark. "Me neither. I'm grateful for the chance to be a part of her life," Mark replied, a smile spreading across his face. "Just remember, it's about Emma. She needs both of us to be there for her," Lisa said, her voice steady. "I know, and I promise to keep doing my best," Mark assured her. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the yard, Lisa felt a sense of hope for the future. They had come a long way from their tumultuous past, and while there were still challenges ahead, she was confident that they could navigate them together, for Emma's sake. That evening, as Lisa tucked Emma into bed, she felt a sense of fulfillment. "You had a great day today, didn't you?" she asked, brushing her fingers through Emma's hair. "Yeah, I love having a puppy, and Dad is really fun to be with," Emma replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. "I'm glad you're happy, sweetheart. Just remember, it's important to have both of us in your life," Lisa said, kissing her forehead. As she closed the door to Emma's room, Lisa took a deep breath, feeling a sense of accomplishment. She had fought for her daughter's happiness and had managed to create a loving environment for her. With Mark now actively involved, Lisa felt a renewed sense of hope. They were not just co-parents, they were a team, working together to ensure that Emma had the best life possible. And as they moved forward, Lisa knew that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their love for their daughter.